I don't know if you remember this, but I said at one point, I wonder if there are any young black men in the red pill community. I went and did some digging.
And we
have found
one.
An ex-red pillar who is also black and of African descent.
Black people, especially young black people around these incel spaces, due to the fact that they always have like a token black friend, someone to kind of show that they're not racist.
These boys are our responsibility as a society.
To truly protect and honour the emotional lives of boys, we must challenge the patriarchal culture. And until that culture changes, we must create subcultures, the sanctuaries where boys can learn who they are uniquely.
One thing you can't do as a teacher or a parent is shut down their thoughts and make them feel stupid. Because the thing about these right-wing spaces is that they give people a voice to speak.
Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Rigor and flow.
One.
What a lovely mug you have. And I'm not talking about your face.
What a gorgeous mug. It's our first Rigour and Flow mugs. They're not for sale. We just bought them because we wanted to see.
They might be for sale by the time this goes out.
No, actually, you might be right. We might have set up some sort of drop shipping.
Unfortunately, as we've been told, commercialization is never our first priority.
At all. It's something we definitely need to work on.
We need to work on.
But yes, I'm holding a mug for those on audio with a sort of golden yellow handle, golden yellow interior, white exterior with the Rigour and Flow logo on it.
Yeah, I love them. You did a great job with these mugs.
Oh, why, thank you, darling.
I feel so profesh.
Listen, British made in Barnsley, no less. Yorkshire.
Barnsley. Great. Love it. Okay.
Welcome back to Rigour and Flow with me, Aiwan.
Me, Tamanda, the show where business meets love.
And culture meets critique.
We have another of our notes from the margins sessions this week. Should I say sessions or episodes?
We call it a session. I like a session.
We know that. It's another of our notes from the margins sessions this week. And this time we're tying together 3 slightly related themes, I think. And we're kicking off with you, Aiwan, talking about?
I am talking about what I studied at uni and whether it was actually worth it or not, particularly in this landscape where the education industry, for want of a better term, is going through a lot right now.
Exactly, yeah. In the second segment, I'm going to be coming in and I'm asking or answering the question, are there any black bros in the red pill right-wing community?
Community, in quotes. But then again, I guess it
is a community. So maybe we'll talk about that. Let's talk about it.
That's the thing, yeah. In the final section, we are answering a community question, which is, what can we do about the issue of boys, men, and toxic masculinity? It's a big question. And it stems from the episode we did on women and the patriarchy. And that raised a lot of discourse in our communities. So that's our notes from the margins for this week. And let's get into it.
So, Aiwan, if you were 18 today and you were finishing school right now, would you go to university? I just want a yes, no.
Yes, but.
Okay, we'll come to the but.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, let's imagine you said yes. Would you still study the same thing you did the first time around, which was music, right? Music tech.
Yeah, so I studied music production and music technology. So that's everything to do with recording, mixing, mastering, writing. Well, not so much writing, certainly sound design.
Audio and sound design.
Just audio, music and sound design, yeah. So we made a lot of beats. We faffed around with a lot of computer stuff for programming and so on and so forth. Spent a lot of time in the studio. Would I study the same thing? Yes and no.
Okay, say more. Now I actually want I'm ready for the full-blown kind of discussion about why, what, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, I would say yes, because there's something, at least for me, that was very important about structured learning. I think if I had to learn music technology now, I could do that. on more informal means like YouTube or what was that one?
TikTok,
Linda.
Linda?
Yeah, there was a platform called Linda where there were loads of courses.
Wow.
Yeah, it was called
Where was
Linda.
it made? Is it like
It was
Linda
online.
Beautiful? Was it like
No, it was just called
Brazilian
Linda.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
It was literally just called Linda. That was the name of the platform.
wow.
I don't know why it was called Linda. I don't know. But you could go on Linda back then and do courses in various things, including music technology. So yes, I could go on there. But I think to piece together that kind of knowledge, it would take a lot longer because because you don't know what you don't know, right? So how do you know what you need to learn at what point?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about university is that it structures it in a way that each subsequent piece of knowledge builds on the piece before, giving you a very comprehensive, robust and rigorous set of knowledge.
Foundational kind of
Foundational
framework
knowledge, yeah.
for your industry, I guess.
Exactly. And it really brings together the theory and the practical, particularly on the course that I was on. So I studied at Leeds College of Music. And I can tell the difference between the education I have and whenever I encounter younger people who've learnt on YouTube, who've learnt alone, in that some of the foundational principles of audio, they don't know. And troubleshooting audio, they struggle with because they don't actually understand the science of sound in terms of things like signal flow and so on and so forth. So it means that I can figure out a problem 1,000 times quicker than some of these younger ones who've learned on YouTube.
Yeah, because you're responding to a knowledge of theory, whereas they're just doing trial and error, presumably.
Precisely.
And to a process of elimination.
Exactly.
It's a kind of science, but it's a lot to experiment on the job.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So I think, yes, in terms of that structured learning, it got me the knowledge I wanted quicker and I think in a more comprehensive way.
And presumably a qualification that you could then take into the industry.
Which means nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, literally in the history of my 20 years in the entertainment industry, nobody has ever asked me what I studied,
Right.
what grade I got, and for the certificate that I got as a result of it.
Wow.
Our
okay.
industry doesn't really care about those sorts of things. What we care about is, do you have the knowledge to do this thing that we need you to do? Do I like you? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Can you do it quickly?
And can you do it quickly?
Yeah.
Which is where having that knowledge comes in.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's worked with me will know that I work at the speed of light and I can do some crazy stuff in a very short space of time.
If you can't see me, I am giving major side eye to Aiwan. Working at the speed of lightning is a thing she does like no other. And your work rate, I'm sure, is what gets you, apart from the fact that your clients love you, your work rate is ridiculous.
Yeah, I do. I definitely have a silly work rate. I've had to really unpack a few things in that department. But I think what I would say is the no side of things is the reason why I say no as well as yes is because, yes, I'm definitely fortunate to be able to work in the field for which I studied, right? When I look back at the people I went to uni with, the vast majority no longer work in the entertainment industry.
Or in audio or sound.
Or in audio or sound or anything. Wow. Some of them have gone on to do social media, like build social media things. Some people are completely out of the industry and in whole other industries. So I do feel fortunate that I still work in the industry and I get to use these tools every day. Like, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't open Logic Pro. So Logic Pro is the software that I use for audio. Or DaVinci, or I don't have to pull open some synthesizer and compose something or put together a quick bit of sound design for a film or for a podcast or whatever. I mean,
or
I do
even
a lot
random
of it.
idea in your head.
Or a random idea, getting it down and storing it in the database for future work. This show, I use the skills all the time.
Yep,
These
you
mics
sure
you see, they're from my rig.
Yeah.
And I record all of our audio. I record the video.
You make beautiful montages, if I may say so, based on your last episode.
Oh yeah, check out
Voice Notes.
Oh yeah, Community Voice Notes.
Yeah.
Also check out the UK Black Pride episode. I did a little
yeah.
piece there towards the end.
Love that.
I adore audio. Like it means a lot to me. But in terms of your ability to work in this field with a qualification, it doesn't mean anything, the qualification in the
Yeah.
end.
Okay.
It does and it doesn't. Nobody's
It
asking for your
means what you
qualification.
turn it and convert it into,
That
and how
part.
you use that foundational knowledge. Because
Yes.
from what I see in your industry, hustle is like a major currency. Qualifications and network, regardless, it feels like you have to work.
Yes.
You have to hustle
You
constantly.
have to. And the turnaround times are quick. So if you can't work quickly, you're not going to get rehired. I can
Yeah.
tell you that for free.
Yeah.
Because our deadlines are tight,
They're
as we've spoken
ridiculous.
about in previous episodes. So the industry is very oversaturated because the cost of equipment just went down hugely.
Yeah.
So you can put together a home studio for less than a few £100s now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have home studios.
Not necessarily the skills, presumably.
Yeah. And then, but even access to the skills has also become very easy, because now on YouTube, you've got a whole bunch of people making videos about how to make beats, how to do sound design, how to record audio, how to mix audio, how to master audio. Here's the 10 plugins you need to be able to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So,
And then you've got AI coming along, telling people you can buy an AI generated piece of software that will do those things for you.
exactly.
Cut out the background noise. Do
Cut
this,
out the
do that.
silences, cut out the ums and ahs. There's even software that does all of that.
Exactly.
You know, and I do use some of these AI tools, and I think some of them are really good. Like, for example, I've just finished working on a film with Cherish, who we did The Black Cop with, and that film had a lot of archive from back in the day, and there's a lot of background noise and music specifically. And obviously we can't use the music in the film because it's not cleared. We don't have the rights to use it. And there's some brilliant AI tools that remove that music so that I can just have the speech, and then I can put my own music and sound design behind it in the film. So these tools are brilliant, but if that's all you know, you're going to struggle as an audio engineer, because actually the skills you need as an audio engineer are actually very varied and very vast, and you're going to encounter some things that AI can't do.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's the thing. I think fees are higher now. So when I went to university, the fees weren't that high. And also the student plan was different. Like, I feel like if I get to like some age, like, I don't know, 60, I feel like they're not going to ask me for my student loan to be paid back.
No.
And if
but
I
I mean,
die,
what
I
happens
think-
to this generation? Because they are, 27K's worth of debt.
Yeah.
Just on the tuition alone, never mind the rest of your life that you've got to cover as a student, which is
Yeah.
why so many are working.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a minimum of 27K you're signing up to.
Absolutely. For a qualification that nobody's even really asking for, and to go into an industry that's oversaturated and where you're not even guaranteed a job, because the industry, the entertainment industry, if you don't know, is going through a lot of turmoil at the moment. A lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
Big execs, the big ones that used to make all the decisions and gate kept things and all sorts of things, they are now out of jobs.
Yeah.
Some of them are having to go into retail and other jobs to make ends meet. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with retail. I'm just saying that if you've been a big exec at a massive broadcaster and now you're having to do whatever it takes to make ends meet, that's a bit of a jump.
That's a kick in the teeth. But also, if you signed up and paid 27K to be able to get a qualification that allows you to work in an industry, and you can't even get a foot in, and you're seeing that guy who was the fat cat before, now not in that industry he had been in comfortably.
Yep.
That's really a big question mark now.
Exactly. In the last couple of years alone, quite a number of production companies have closed down as a result of many things. We had the writer's strike, which had a knock-on effect. Things weren't being greenlit and commissioned for a whole bunch of reasons. So there's so many reasons why the industry is just very shaky at the moment. And of course, technology is also causing problems as well for us. Innovations in technology are causing problems for us. Have our decision makers in our industry made the best decisions at various points that could have made things better for us? They haven't made the greatest decisions. That's maybe a discussion for another day. I don't think things have been handled in the music industry, the film industry, the TV industry very well at all. But if I get into that, I'm going to start ranting and shouting. And this is not a show
We
where I
won't
want to be
mention
ranting.
any parasitic companies that we may know of where you might get your music, or maybe even this podcast.
Yes, exactly. So this is these are some of the things. So I think it's a tricky industry to say that you're going to go get a qualification for 27K and then landing and hope that you're going to make enough to pay back that 27K in a reasonable amount of time. That's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. But if you were 18 now, would you consider studying something other than audio?
Studying something
that might
other
convert
than...
to a job, for example, or...
So my heart would say no.
Yeah.
Because I love audio.
Yeah.
You know, even as I say it now, I get little goosebumps. Like, audio for me is like magical. You know, it's... You know, I get such a buzz when I buy, this is going to sound so nerdy, oh my gosh, but I get such a buzz when I buy like a new piece of audio equipment.
I know you do, I've seen it. I love it as well.
Listen, when I get a new microphone, you know, or a new like piece of software and you open it up.
Audio equipment and building tools, that's you.
Yeah, literally. Like, it's so magical, you know, just the process of analog to digital conversion and then digital to analog conversion, how sound, you can't see it, but it has such a profound impact on you when you hear it. I feel quite emotional when I talk about it because audio's had such a big impact on my life. You know, it's what it happens in your brain on a physical level, but on a spiritual, mental level. You know, how sound can change your mood. It can change the way you think about the world. I mean, that's what we're doing now, right? We're saying words into this microphone. The microphone is converting into electronic signals into the computer to be processed, to be spat back out through your podcast platform so you can hear us at any time of the day and hear what we're saying about the issues of our time. Like, for me, that's really quite magical, you know, and I get goosebumps about it. And I think, so yeah, I'd say no. But then my head, this head of mine that I've been gifted, says, yes, I should study something different.
Oh, really?
Because this industry has put me through the ringer on this God's green earth.
Your industry. Even the tastes I've had of it, watching you, and at the beginning of my own career, it's intense. But so, okay, so it would be like a firm something else then. And what would the something else be? And
if I could do something else... it depends. There's two sides now. There's the materialistic me.
Okay.
Because I've got a materialistic side, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd probably want to do something that would make me a lot of money so that I can just chill and basically do music.
It all comes back to audio.
Yeah,
what
it
do you
really
think
does.
would make you loads of money to do?
Maybe something in like banking,
Tech?
hedge funds.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't want to do tech, not now, because tech is going through its own thing.
It's true.
You know, because AI has also, coding can be done by AI. You know what I mean? So you've got to be either an innovator.
AI innovation, maybe something like that, yeah.
But yeah, do something like banking, you know, law, but the powerful law, not ones where you're scrappling around somewhere on a street trying to get 500 every so often. Yeah, I want to do
criminal defense law.
Yeah, I want strong law, you know, one that's like corporate law or, you know,
okay,
where it's really powerful, where you're charging like £10,000 an hour. And I know that I only have to stay there for a few years. And then
I can go back to your audio.
And I can go back to audio, buy all the equipment I need, build my own little studio and never come out into the world ever again.
Okay.
But yeah, so that would be...
You said there was another side of you, if you'd go for the big money, or what
the
would be
more
the other option?
human side,
Yeah.
you know, the more that side. I'd probably... What people don't know is I actually got accepted to Leeds University to study psychology with biology.
Even I knew that.
Yeah. So psychology has always been a big part of my, one of my big loves is what I would say.
Yeah,
and I think part of it is because I was always trying to understand my life and the things that had happened to me and what makes humans tick and really trying to unpick the threads of my life and piece them back together in a way that felt better and healthier and so on and so forth. So it would probably be psychology.
That's so interesting.
Would I become a therapist? I don't know. Would it be maybe research? I don't know, but I'd be in that space.
That is super interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I have to say, weirdly, as a documentary filmmaker and as a podcast producer, I often feel like I am a psychotherapist.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've seen you do it. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm in a therapy session in our episodes, but yeah, I've seen you do it with other people because you've got to make it safe for people.
Yeah.
You've got to both ask them questions that bring out the best, but you've got to ask them questions that challenge them.
Yeah.
You've got to go into areas they may not willingly, consciously choose to go.
Yep.
You know, I can really see that. I'm going to say something a bit spiritual or a bit, you know, woo-woo, but I think that we all have a purpose here on earth.
Agreed.
And we all have certain gifts. And I tend to find, certainly if I look at my own life, but when I've listened to yours, we end up always manifesting that thing that's in us. So it's no surprise, like whether you went and studied psychology at uni or you exercise that interest in your field of entertainment and audio, it's going to come out of you because it's deep within you. It's deep within your story. It's deep within everything else. Right?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I guess there's another reason I ask about what you would study and why, and it's because at some level, you could say that one possible goal of education or higher education is to help you to think critically about the world around you.
In an ideal world, yes.
Exactly. So I'm curious, like from that standpoint, would you see a value in going into education or higher education?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm raised in a community, you know, Nigerians are known for their love of education. And I was raised with the same thing. It was drilled in, read your book. Education is important. Do you know what I mean? Go and read your book.
Yeah.
Don't come and tell me that you're bored or something. There's no boredom when there are books to be read, right? So that's what, education is very, very important. All types of education. The one from institutions, the one that you do on your own, and the ones that you find around you from your community, from your family, from the physical world that you live in. It's very important. Education is important. Critical thinking is also very, very important. And education institutions are supposed to teach that.
Yeah.
And at university, you are supposed to step into those hallowed halls, and they are hallowed halls.
Yeah.
And you are supposed to be in that space where your thinking is challenged.
Yeah.
You may have come from your little village somewhere, or one hood from somewhere, or even one castle that you lived in. And we all come together into these hallowed halls. No, it's true.
It's absolutely
And you're
true.
smashed together.
Yes.
So the person in the castle has to learn from the person from the ghetto, and the person from the ghetto has to learn from the person in the village.
If
You're all smashed
they
together.
bother to mix in uni, which is another thing.
Which is another thing.
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, you're supposed to come together and have your thinking challenged. And to be stretched and pulled intellectually.
Yes.
That's the purpose of those hallowed halls. And I feel like universities, to some degree, seem to have lost their way. And I don't think they are what they could and should be, if I'm being honest, particularly when it comes to allowing all sorts of views into that space to be interrogated and think. This is what some people think. This is what other people think. This is how people live. This is how other people live. Here's a hypothesis. Let's test it. I'm not saying universities don't do that. I'm just saying that I feel like it could be better.
Okay. Fair enough.
Over to you, Dr. Tamanda
No,
Walker.
I mean, I'm actually going to let you just have your say on that because it is what it is. I guess, you know, it's interesting because I'm just thinking about how young people will make that calculation today. And in the past, you could have said, you know, higher education is really important for critical thinking. And, you know, when you leave university, you become an adult and you can vote. But we've just got to a place where young people in England, anyway, are able to vote in the next general election.
At the age of?
At 16.
At 16 years
And
old.
that means while you're still in statutory education, that critical thinking is even more important to foster. So I was just trying to...
not statutory.
Non-statutory, yeah, you're right, sorry.
Although, they've changed the law actually. 16 to 17, you still have to be in something, either in an apprenticeship or in education from 16 to 17. They have changed that law. So yes, it is statutory to be in something.
Yeah.
What you can't be doing is just gallivanting and roaming around the streets.
Yeah, that's... Well, okay. I was going to try and do some nice smooth ending about...
No, do a smooth ending.
No, it's fine. I'm just going to... I can see where you are today, so I'm just going to let that be there. And
I'm so sick
I was going
right
to
now.
say... This fever you have, this virus inside you, there's no
I'm
reining you in.
delirious at this point.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've expressed yourself. That's very important. And, you know, I think education... You know, I see many people in the university who are really helping people, and I meet people all the time who talk about, you know, regardless of whether you get the best lecturers or not, the network being the very important thing you get from university. Should you have to pay 27K for it? No, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, that there are many things, like you say, beyond what happens in the classroom that are important about the university experience, and meeting people from all those walks of life, and hopefully getting lecturers who will help you get that kind of critical outlook, or allow you to ask all the big questions, is an important part of it.
Yeah, and I have to say, I had brilliant teachers, lecturers. I mean, a lot of who I am today is because of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like infinitely grateful for their input into my life. And I think the thing that you touched on about networks, my cousin came to me and said, should I go and study at this uni? It's going to cost this much. I remember a few years back. And I said, don't worry too much about the qualification, because it's a creative qualification. Nobody's going to ask you about that shit. But what you will do is you're going to be in class with people who are going to go on to do great things, and they become your social network. That is more important. That is more valuable than gold. I think about my network. I've got friends who've won Grammy Awards, got friends who've won BAFTAs.
Played drums,
Toured with all the biggest artists in the world. And these are people that if I bump into them on road, they know me, I know them, we've worked together, and if I need something, I know I can ask them, and vice versa. So your networks are ridiculously important. And that for me is a very good reason to go to university.
Yeah.
That and the structured learning.
Yeah. You had a lot to say on that
I
topic.
did have
I'm going to add one more thing, because I'm
on.
sure we're going to cut it. But anyway, I'm going to add it.
Go on.
It's so interesting that you're so critical of all educators as a former teacher.
Yes.
And when we've both, I know exactly your frustration, but I know some of the most brilliant educators doing all the things you say.
Listen.
And I've definitely been fortunate to experience many of them myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
and
the
me
opposite
too. Yeah.
as well. But
my teaching style, my approach, my philosophy around teaching is literally founded on a man called Stuart Livingstone, whose teaching style revolutionized my approach to teaching and what I thought about what teaching could be. Yeah. He elevated to a whole other level. Forest Hill Boys School in Southeast London. That guy is a god of teaching.
Really?
I'm telling you now. And I owe a lot of who I am as a teacher to him. And I think part of my critique is because I have been a teacher and a student in the education system. And so that's why I critique. And I think if you care about something, you criticize it.
of course.
Because I care about education.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
In this next segment, I want to go back to a conversation that we had way back in episode 16. Mm-hmm. In that episode, we talked about raising boys and how you address issues of masculinity if you have a son. And as part of that tangent, I remember us talking about incel culture.
Yes.
And how vulnerable young boys might be to being groomed into those environments. Mm-hmm. We went on a little bit of a tangent. I don't know if you remember this, but I said at one point, I wonder if there are any young black men in the red pill community.
I remember it well.
Right. And I think I said we should go away and research that and come back, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
And clearly there's this overlap in red pill circles between, really right-wing ideology, white supremacy, etc. So I was like, how would a black kid fall into that?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I went and did some digging.
And we
have found
one.
an ex-red pillar who is also black and of African descent.
And his name is Kelvin Frimpong.
Exactly. So the thing I came across initially was this LBC article that they had done on Kelvin and his story. And that sent me down a trail where I found his TikTok account, and I found this video that he had produced where he talked about how he fell down the alt-right pipeline as a Ghanaian-born young man who had come to this country. Let me tell you, this TikTok was so illuminating, because he kind of described these 4 steps or conditions that made him vulnerable. And the first thing he said was that he was seriously alienated from black culture and what he called mainstream black politics. That's the word he used, right?
What would mainstream black politics be like?
It sound he didn't actually define it, but it sounds like he was saying, like, I'm sure you can get some much more radical black voices who are also quite right wing.
Right.
You know, Hoteps, for example, could be an example. I'm not saying they're right wing in a white supremacist way, but there can be quite a lot of patriarchy, for example.
Oh yeah.
That's not necessarily very progressive.
But would you say that's mainstream?
No, I'm saying that's not mainstream.
Oh, that's not mainstream.
So I'm characterizing.
Yeah.
He said
Sorry,
he was like disenfranchised and alienated from mainstream. I think possibly you could also say more progressive black politics.
Yeah, okay.
Based on other things he said. And he said that one of the preconditions which we're more aware of in the culture was isolation. He was isolated both from his black peers and his white peers, and he felt disconnected in the sense that he was perceived by black people to not be black enough because he had all these side interests that aren't considered black, like an interest in anime and an interest in all these things.
Yeah.
And so he didn't get any acceptance from black peers in the way that he wanted. He was also in white spaces where he didn't really feel like he belonged. So what he was saying was this produced like a resentment in him. And that resentment is exactly the thing that makes you vulnerable to those right-wing ideologies, because what they effectively do is validate your feelings of being an outsider as part of their grooming process. So he said the kind of other condition was that right-wing red pill community offered this like really seductive narrative to him in which he came to get this sense that, you know, I can be a free thinker. I'm already on the outside. I'm already being kind of not belonging in these spaces. But here I can get this sense of empowerment because the ideology of those communities is anti-identity politics. You're a free thinker. You're part of something else other than the oppression Olympics here. And you don't belong to your black people. So that's obviously seductive, right? You don't want to be the usual black identity politics dude.
Yeah.
And what he was saying was that for him, it was easy to fall down that pipeline because these are spaces that people aren't using like overt white supremacist symbols necessarily, which people imagine like a swastika or something. Yeah. It's a much more gradual desensitization into this world, which takes you towards racism and white supremacy. And the currency in that world is that they use these very logical debates, all rooted in data and some sort of semblance of objective fact about single mothers, about black on black crime, about, just all of these criminality within black communities, all of these things that become like right-wing talking points. So if you want to feel like a free thinker and you hear this seductive, well, these are obviously the facts, it bolsters, in a sense, your sense of self. Yeah. And I found that fascinating, along with the last thing he mentioned, which is that in those communities, there was this push on materialism that like aligned with young boys' desire for things of value, like almost a capitalistic thing that is tied up in Christian values and almost like prosperity gospel. Interesting. Which feels a little like...
Because I would have thought they would not like that because the Chads have those things, right? And they hate the Chads, right?
True, but then you look at the Andrew Tates. He's made his whole persona on being flashy, these nice cars.
Yeah, nice watches and
and actually just making that something that young boys would want to aspire to in a pressure, particularly, imagine you're working class and you don't have, men are socialized to want things and to show that they're a good catch by the things that they have. Yeah. You know, I found his TikTok so illuminating. He ends it with this question to people watching, obviously his peers, which is, if you're a black person who falls into these communities, you know, ask yourself if your identity is being used so it can be weaponized against people so that these groups can claim you're not racist.
Very good.
Or if you're actually receiving full acceptance in these spaces in the way that you thought you were. I thought that was just such an interesting standpoint. And casually, because I was so impressed by this TikTok, I was like, oh, let me just send this guy a message on the off chance and see if he replies, because wouldn't it be great to hear from him directly? And he replied.
I know.
Like straight away as well. He is a lovely young man as well.
We love Kelvin. And he's still young, you know. Isn't he like 20 or something?
I don't know what age he's. I know he works because sometimes we were voice noting and he was like, oh, work's been so busy. So I don't know what he does, but... Yeah,
but he's still a young
still
man.
a young
It's
man,
not-
very
yeah,
impressive.
Yeah, he's
young
very.
man.
He's certainly in his 20s, I think.
Yeah.
So
Super interesting. Should we play?
Yeah,
some of his
let's
voice
hear
notes?
from Kelvin.
Okay. One of the things we asked him was, are there many young black men in these red pill communities? Here's what he had to say.
Believe it or not, there are a few black people, especially young black people around these incel spaces due to the fact that they always have like a token black friend, someone to kind of show that they're not racist, or someone to show that, oh, I've got black friends, I've got that cool friend, whatever. And the problem is that within the sort of the black identity, or the quote unquote black identity, there are some similar links between especially our views on like homosexuality and our views on misogyny, linking to how a lot of these right wingers think. So that one link, it can be enough for a young black man to fall into that pipe drive of being an incel.
So the other question we asked him was, how can you spot the signs of being groomed, and how can you like help people not to succumb to that kind of grooming?
The thing is, when it comes to teachers or parents, it's quite easy to spot this. I think the best way to spot this is through education. Honestly, teach the young kids about what's around them, what they're seeing, what this means, what that means. Because I have quite a lot of siblings. I have like 6 other siblings, and I make sure I engage with them politically a lot, where I'm gauging their views, especially the youngest one, because I'm really trying to see what their thoughts are about this world. And one thing you can't do as a teacher or a parent is shut down their thoughts and make them feel stupid. Because the thing about these right-wing spaces is that they give people a voice to speak without making them feel, foolish, even as stupid as it is. So what you need to do to your child is make sure that they've got a voice, make sure that they can actually be heard. And you need to educate them on maybe why what they said is right, or why maybe their thoughts come from wherever. But yeah, I think it's really, really important to be close enough and be able to educate your children on these subjects.
It comes back to the first segment, which is that educational institutions are there to challenge your thinking and to expose you to other ways of thinking about the world. Do you know what I mean? So education is important, but I think what he said is important, building on that, which is it's not just in the education institutions, it's also in your families, in your communities, in your churches. Unfortunately, very often in African cultures, we've spoken about this a few times, children are to be seen and not heard, right? So what often happens is that children's voices aren't heard or appreciated or interrogated.
Yeah.
So there can be all sorts of things going on in their head, but they can't say it either for fear or because there just isn't space for them to be heard, which means that the adults in their lives don't know what's going on in their heads. And so then it just stays there. And then they find a community who do want to hear them, and then it just elevates and escalates from there.
Totally. And in fact, I think he says something very similar to that in one of his other voice notes.
Because after all, there's this overall assumption that if you're black, you're never going to fall into that. So a lot of parents just ignore talking about things like this to their children, but please don't avoid it. It's very, very important to speak about these things, because honestly, if it wasn't for some of my uncles and aunts when I was younger speaking to me about politics, I would have never, ever had the mind to even go back and be interested in politics in the first place.
This is it. And it's so funny because once again, communication is at the core of the solution to the problem.
Exactly.
Conversation, communication, talk it out. Even if it's uncomfortable, say the uncomfortable. Create spaces where saying the uncomfortable is easy so that it's out in the open. When it's out in the open, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
When it's not, it becomes entrenched and hidden.
Just goes underground, brushed under a carpet to morph into God knows what.
Yeah, but it doesn't go away. That's the thing. I think some people, particularly in the last 5 years, just thought that by not talking about the thing and saying that that's bad, that's evil, it's gone away. No, it hasn't. And then it reared its ugly head.
It comes always back with a vengeance.
Exactly.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the other piece that he really got into in the remainder of his voice notes, which were ones where I asked him another direct question, like, what could the adults in your life or safe adult do for you if you become vulnerable to this kind of thing? And here's what he said.
So one thing that the community and also teachers, community leaders can do is make sure that young boys or young people have a space to grow and make mistakes. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but these community clubs that, we're all making fun of, but they genuinely need to be built. Like, I don't know where the funding has been going, but like, they really, really, really need to be built, because a lot of these young people have absolutely nothing to do but to just spend all their time online. And, the algorithm is really not a safe place to raise your child.
Let's not talk about the Tories over the last 14 years of their rule and how they cut everything. Arts. I mean, obviously, I'm a music teacher. They cut funding to music provisions. They cut like all of the community centres and youth clubs that used to be there. They cut them, And Labour, whatever you have to say about Labour, they have actually committed to put in a certain amount of money to bringing them back. Because where are the young people going to go?
Yeah. And as Kelvin rightly says, you are allowing the algorithm to raise your children.
Yeah.
And maybe not due to any fault of your own, if you're a busy parent just trying to work and make ends meet and you don't have the time for childcare or those conversations that we've talked about that are important. There are real systemic and structural reasons why those conversations can be hard.
Exactly.
But the risk, if we don't have that gap filled, is a generation that could be into who knows what. Andrew Tate. Yeah, he dove deep. We had a bit of an exchange on African conservatism, and this is what he had to say.
Also, it's very interesting because a lot of people don't really think about that, but it's just really one of the things that I observed growing up is that there's too many links between the sort of core identity and a lot of conservative ideas. So that's a very, very interesting standpoint too.
I loved where he was going with that point of view, because it's one of the things that I don't think we fully appreciate in the African community, which is that if you've got a young black boy who is a red pillar, for want of a better term, and he comes to his community with, views around, homophobia and transphobia and being anti-LGBTQ+, and you're an African conservative family who's maybe Christian, it aligns with your views. So it's not even a red flag because it matches. In fact, it's a green flag. It's like, great, my son's not gay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if he comes to you with a view that says something along the lines of, men should dominate and women should be under, great. We have a verse for that in the Bible. Women, submit yourself to your husband. Great. He's going to be a dominant, strong, powerful African patriarch. You know what I mean? It aligns. Yeah. It's not misogyny. It's a green flag, right? So it's very interesting that a lot of the views in that circle actually align with our African conservatism.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't spot it in those, there's a potential that you wouldn't spot it.
Yeah.
Unless he's coming with some like barking at a teacher. Yeah. Then it's like, no, that's getting in the way of education.
Now that's a conflict.
Not the teacher.
Yeah. And even Andrew Tate capitalism will align with the prosperity gospel.
Earn money. Yeah, but even beyond prosperity gospel, I mean, just as a community, very often you're migrants.
Yeah.
You're wanting to build a better life.
You want your kids to be safe.
Absolutely. And if he's got that drive and aggression to go out there and get education and get money and build wealth for the family, because of course it's for the family, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to be invested in that. It's like, great, he's on the right path. Yeah. He's not gay. He's a dominant, solid, masculine man. Yeah. And he's going to have loads of money. Yeah. What more could I want?
Yeah. It's true.
It's very interesting. I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, I definitely hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, and based on my background, I can see how, you'd miss the signs.
Yeah, 100%. Finally, one of the most joyful parts of the exchange with Kelvin was hearing what helped him get to the other side, what influenced him, and how he's found new parts of himself having been part of the red pill community and now left.
Also, to answer your question about art, 100%. Ever since I was younger, I've been drawing, I've been doing art, engaged in art, whatever. But I've never really painted because I never knew what to express or how to express myself. And that all just came from the fact that I didn't even know what I wanted to express because I didn't know myself. So for me to fall down this journey of, kind of decode or uncoding my normal responses and really researching about what I want to be in life, I discovered painting again. Obviously, I didn't discover painting, but I discovered that, me painting would be a really good way to express myself. And, just me going through the journey of self-love and really trying to learn about the world. A lot of feminist literature really, really, really shaped how I think, especially like Maya Angelou, they really, and there's a book by Bell Hooks called All About Love. All of those together, that was the moment where I realized that I want to know myself more, and I love the idea of self-love, which helped me do my paintings. And one of my first paintings actually is a guy sitting on top of this glass jar, and there's a world inside that glass jar. It's a very me personally, I don't really like that painting now, but a lot of people do like that painting, and that was just me kind of gaining a bit more self-confidence to announce myself in the painting, I guess, in the painting scene. But yeah, I really do think painting was the start of the journey for me.
Do you know what? All I can say is 1 point to the arts, 1 point to the Black feminists.
Yes, 100%.
For liberation and self-expression.
10 million points to both of them. But also, what a gorgeous reflection from him.
So beautiful.
On self-love.
Yeah.
And just to hear a young man speak that way.
Yeah.
And then to see his artwork, which
Beautiful.
we'll put in the show notes and throw up on the screen now if you're watching on YouTube.
Yep.
I mean, he talked about his art like, I don't really like it. That picture, the 2 pictures he sent us, nearly made me cry.
Yeah, especially that one of the little black boy sat on top of the jar. It's just a beautiful picture. It's like a night sky. There's a little black boy sat on top of a glass jar, and the world, the planet Earth, is inside the glass jar. And because the glass jar is overturned on top of like some grass. And you look at it, and in that picture, I can just see all of the things we've kind of talked about, which is a slight alienation from the world, but a longing to reconnect with the world, because you're still sitting there, you're trying to be in contact with it, but you can't. Yeah. And the sky is dark, but it's getting progressively lighter towards the bottom of the picture. So it's almost like maybe a new day is coming where I might become reconnected with the world that I feel so alienated from. It's really, really powerful. It's really evocative. Yeah. And I think that, I know, Kelvin, you said that you don't like it. I'm telling you now, it's a beautiful, powerful piece of art. And I'm really glad that you found the arts. This is what I mean. The arts are really powerful.
Self-expression. Yeah. And there's another gorgeous piece that he does, which looks like a scene of a mother with a baby in her back in Africa. It feels so familiar to scenes of Africa that I grew up around. Yeah. I imagine it's his pictures of Ghana and his memories in his head. And then a young boy holding the mother's hand in the background. And it feels somehow like he's come off the jar and he's now reconnected with the women in some cases, or the younger siblings, the next generation that are following behind. He talks about his younger siblings in that way. So you have this real sense of reintegration and connectedness. And it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
There's a sense of longing in that picture as well. A longing for something different.
Whole.
Yeah, a longing to maybe reconnect with that little boy. Obviously, we're putting our interpretations on this, but it's also interesting that there's a firework going off in the background, and it's like a celebration. There's a celebration of something as well. It's really good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I really enjoy his art.
And of course, I had to ask him, do you sell your art? Because we need to let everybody know. And
He doesn't, does he?
Apparently doesn't, but he did give us his links, which we'll put in the show notes.
Exactly.
And everybody can check him out on Instagram.
Sounds good.
But Kelvin, start selling your artwork, please.
Yes.
For our final segment, of course, we had been thinking about boys, education, schools, masculinity, all the things that Kelvin had raised and others who'd listened to our episode on men and boys had raised. So we decided to reach out to a good friend of mine who I know, Dr. Alex Blower, who's been doing unbelievable research and practice and policy work in this space for ages. And Alex had listened to our full episode and had a response to it and some signposts of his own. So let's listen to that.
Hi, both. Firstly, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to explore what is such a messy, complex, difficult conversation to have in such an empathic and emotional way on the show. It was really, really interesting to listen to your perspectives on masculinity and potentially raising a young man in a contemporary societal context which has so many challenges and barriers that we didn't necessarily encounter with regards to our digital lives. There was a couple of bits that really stood out to me when you were having your conversation. I think the first one was the automatic kind of place that we tend to go to with conversations like this, which is quite oppositional and polarized, and actually the difficulty in negotiating the fact that there are these kind of two truths that are almost competing but happening at the same time, and how we figure out all of that. There's a great guy, I say he's a great guy, I've never met him, but it's a fantastic author of a book that I really, really like called Mask Off by J.J. Bowler, and what he describes this kind of patriarchal societal structure that we've created over generations for ourselves as is a double-edged sword. And on one side of that sword you have tremendous ills that are linked to gender-based inequalities with regards to violence against women and girls, sexual harassment, unequal distribution of domestic labour, pay. And then on the other side of this sword you have the kind of pernicious products, if you like, that affect boys and young men. And we see that in stats with regards to increased likeliness of homelessness, death by addiction, suicide, entry into the criminal justice system, and gaps in educational attainment, which is the focus of my work with young working class men, so young men who experience socio-economic inequality. And these two things are happening at once, and it's my belief that we need to work with young men to support and encourage them so that they can expect a future as a man that's characterized by loving relationships, care and empathy, being a fantastic friend, a fantastic dad, being in that fulfilling job and employment. But at the moment it very much feels like we are working against the mechanisms of societal structures which are geared towards polarization and opposition, and we see that in the current political system. We see one group of politicians or people working in policy who are incredibly focused on the fact that we should be working with young men in education because they're not doing as well as young women at the moment. Sometimes with that there's a subtext of feminism pushing these young men out or something similar. However, on the other side of the political spectrum, we then see people saying, hang on, we have tremendous issues with violence against women and girls, misogyny, manosphere influence and the actors emerging from that. And we've got groups of young men in schools that are perpetrators of misogyny or violence against women and girls and waiting. So we need to go in and deproblematize their problematic views and problematic behaviours. For the young men, it might be that they don't hold those views, and those types of engagements can be quite tricky to navigate. And we've seen recently with the Department for Education, relationships and sex education kind of advice coming out that there is a move towards a much more kind of equitable and constructive way to have those conversations. Yeah, it's happening in a silo. When we're speaking about the lives of young men with a specific focus on education, we have one group that is determined to work with young men because of issues related to manosphere and Andrew Tate, and can quite often take a deficit view, especially of working class young men's kind of within the work. But then on the other side, we see a group that are only focused on educational attainment and don't want to touch any of those wider issues. And what this creates is an incredibly unproductive environment if we're looking to make meaningful change in education. We did some research recently with teachers asking about their perceptions of their relationships with young men in education. Firstly, one of the things that came out was actually how equitable is it to ask teachers in a workforce that is 65% women to be leading conversations surrounding misogyny with groups of young men who could potentially be exhibiting some misogynistic behaviour or have engaged with kind of the red pill online social media content. But then the other thing as well is, how equipped are educators to have critical, open, honest conversations with these young people? Are we giving them the tools required so that they can take the place of trusted adults in these young people's lives, in a position where, due to curriculum changes and educational shifts that have happened since Gove, we're seeing an increased restriction on kind of the autonomy of teachers in the classroom to be able to do that. So it's a real tricky situation. It's a real challenge. Thank you so much for approaching it in such a caring way. And what I want to leave you on is just a quote by Bell Hooks from the book Will to Change: Men, Masculinity and Love. And for me, this really is a case in point as to why we need to be working in a strengths-based way with young men to make the change that we want to see. To truly protect and honour the emotional lives of boys, we must challenge the patriarchal culture. And until that culture changes, we must create subcultures, the sanctuaries where boys can learn who they are uniquely without being forced to conform to patriarchal masculine visions. To love boys rightly, we must value their inner lives enough to construct worlds, both public and private, where their right to wholeness can be consistently celebrated and affirmed, where their need to love and be loved can be fulfilled. I think that probably aligns quite well with your views together on this issue. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and keep it up. It's amazing.
Wow. I have to say, you pointed it out, but I do love the fact that when he started to read that quote from the Bell Hooks book, there were seagulls in the background.
Yeah,
I love
there were
that.
seagulls in the background.
I love a bit of natural sound design. But no, there's a lot to unpick there. I think for me as a teacher, I don't like to say former teacher because I'm still a qualified teacher in the British education system. I just don't teach in the system. But I fundamentally do consider myself a teacher, and I align myself with teachers and educators everywhere. And one thing he mentioned, well, there's a few things he mentioned, which is the constraints on teachers are not conducive to effectively being able to reach kids on all the aspects of their humanity, not just the mental in terms of their intellect and their ability to retain knowledge and synthesize knowledge, all the things we're supposed to do as teachers, but also the emotional and the spiritual.
Yeah.
When you constrain teachers in the way that they have been, it's part of the reason why I left education. Other than I wanted to focus on my career, which was very important to me, it was also because I could see the way things were going. The regimental nature with which teachers are treated, like as if they themselves are not human beings, and the targets that are placed on them, the infinite amounts of paperwork and all sorts of things that are placed on teachers. And then on top of that, like the performance management that were just starting to come in around the time that I left, where if you don't hit this, and this, then you're not going to get to the next rung of the pay scale or whatever it is, right? But then as a teacher, when you step into the other hallowed space, and I think a classroom is a very hallowed space. You are shaping the minds of a future generation, right? When you step into that hallowed space as a teacher, instead of focusing on your hallowed, noble profession, you are now thinking about 10 other things.
Yeah. Paperwork, the inspectors,
observations, the Ofsted, your performance management, your pay scale, all the reams of books you've got to mark, instead of focusing on those young, impressionable, beautiful minds that are in front of you that you have been tasked with educating. And I think that's a very, very important part of it. Then you add in kids doing whatever they're doing because kids are going to do whatever they're going to do, and your inability to be able to deal with that because, again, your hands are tied when it comes to things like discipline. You've then got parents who are moving mad because parents been moving mad. The other thing he mentioned is that, a huge percentage of teachers, particularly at primary school level, are women.
Yeah, that's the bit that I wanted to get into.
Let's get into that, and I'll let you talk on that.
Well, I mean, can go. Oh, the patriarchy is back.
Patriarchy. I shall allow you your
So,
viewpoint
viewpoint.
at this specified moment in the episode.
No, I just thought it was, I mean, I think there's a load of places I'd like to go because this actually also happens with race. And I have people who've written, like friends I know who've written really good articles on it. But this idea that women who are subjected to misogynistic violence would then be the group most predominantly charged with the emotional and societal labor of then doing this work to address a problem.
Yep.
I mean, that is a real dilemma, really, and a real challenge. And I know that we've had some voice notes from others come through, which we will play in future episodes, including teachers, other women who had been in the profession and who struggled with exactly that challenge.
Yep.
And other young Black feminists in our listener group, including Princess, who have talked about what kinds of challenges these things create and some of the approaches to masculinity. So it was really interesting. And I think the other piece in Alex's voice note was this double bind, that it's swung between these two poles of the really feminist kind of violence against women group, positioned against those that want to address toxic masculinity, but in a way that is compassionate towards boys. And it's a real challenge because these groups sometimes aren't meeting in the middle. And then there's another set of groups which you talk about later, which is the educational attainment crew who don't really want to touch any of those debates at all. You know, really fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah. So bearing in mind this context, one thing I also asked Alex was, what is it that is happening in his space? What is he doing with other colleagues to address this issue? And in particular, in light of what Kelvin had said about needing trusted adults and education as a key, this is what he had to say.
And just a couple of bits to follow on from that. So one of the terms that you heard me use there was trusted adults. I noticed that both of you, Aiwan and Tamanda, touched on the idea of needing male role models or that father figure in a young person's life. What recent research demonstrates with regards to kind of entry into the manosphere for young people and for young men is it all starts if you think about it as a funnel, where at the top, you've got just engaging online, and then it goes through to red pill and black pill and kind of the incel culture type stuff. Right at the top of that funnel is a sense of interpersonal and societal rejection. With the work that we do with Boys Impact, the social enterprise that I run, it's about engaging there. It's about fostering a sense of belonging, meaning, and building trust and relationships and a sense of safety with young men to be able to engage in critical conversations about difficult topics in an empathic and sensitive way. Now, do I think that work needs to be exclusively undertaken by men or male role models? No, to be honest with you, I don't. I think there has been a well-trodden assumption and kind of a policy suggestion or notion that we need more male role models in order to counter some of the issues that we're seeing, both in disparities in educational attainment, but also in the emotional lives of young men and how they are negotiating masculinity. What the research demonstrates is that good role models are really, really important. You can be a man and be a terrible role model. You can be a dad and be a terrible dad. Of course, there'll be some things in conversations, if you're looking at relationships with things like pornography, that might be easier to facilitate if you are a man because of the fact that you've got that masculinity as a common ground and those experiences to draw from. But the vast majority of the research shows what's important for these young people and young men is a trusted adult, somebody that they feel safe with, someone who is outside of the immediate family, that they can have conversations surrounding things that might not be going so well or might be quite sensitive, a safe pair of hands that they believe that they can go to with anything, and that trust will be held and the respect is non-hierarchical. It's mutual, and it's a place of comfort and kind of a place to go to build resilience for these young men. There's a task force at the moment called the Lost Boys Task Force that I'm involved in, that's making a call to the government for a trusted adult guarantee. Research suggests we've got about 500,000 young people without access to any trusted adults outside of the immediate family at the moment. And one of the things that we can do and we should do is change that. It wouldn't be a case of finding load more male role models or mentors that don't already exist. A lot of the time they're there, they just don't realise how great they are. They could be pastoral staff in schools, they could be sports coaches, they could be youth and community workers, they could be someone who works down the local corner shop who sees young men regularly. It doesn't matter. It's all about equipping these people that are already out there with the tools to be able to engage in those kinds of relationships where they become a trusted adult safely, productively, and in a way that really, really supports the young men.
It's really powerful. And I like his definition of a trusted adult.
Yeah.
Because very often we think it's like some, I don't know, like a pastor or, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Like some specialist or something, you know what I mean? Whereas actually any of us can be a trusted adult in these kids' lives. And I think the thing that I get from that is that these boys are our responsibility as a society. We don't get to just say, well, this, that. We don't get to say that because those boys are going to turn into men, and those men are going to have an impact on our society. Yeah. What impact do we want them to have?
100%. Couldn't agree more. And a different point, but I want to say that when I was in school and I was struggling with all sorts of things that manifested as eating disorders and all sorts, the most important adults in my life were, one, a guardian of mine, Margie Daniels, who took me out of school regularly during weekends and just created this safe space where I could be myself judgment-free. And two, a unbelievable woman called Rita Taylor, who was a Brummie, and she was the housekeeper in my boarding school. And she just kept it real. And I just loved her. She was that one person I could go to, talk to, express my frustrations. And she's the person who I always copy at home and say, "All right, Hallie."
Oh, is that her?
She coined, "All right, Hallie." Every time she saw me, she had just this welcome. And she was a working class woman in this school that was full of a lot of privilege. And of course, I had been raised by an auntie who was also a domestic worker and did very similar labor to her. So I find it no surprise that across oceans and across continents, there was another woman in that role who felt safe and familiar and loving. And I think every child deserves to have that.
I agree,
So,
1,000%. Yeah. And I think it can be a bit daunting for the adults to talk to teenagers. I think sometimes we forget that we were once children and teenagers ourselves, and maybe I think tapping back into that teenage you could be maybe a way through. But I can appreciate that it could be daunting for people wanting to engage with teenagers because they're at that weird age.
I can hear almost Johanna Stiebert, the professor who sent us a voice note earlier, a few episodes ago, going, "No, I'm not daunted. I'm just irritated." And this is where you girls do theory and I do practice.
Exactly. Well, I'm currently practicing with my godson, who is going to be 14 in December. So he's firmly in that teenage space. He's a young black boy being raised in Croydon, which is not an easy borough in which to be raised in this country. And I practice with him. I feel like I'm out of practice because I haven't taught teenagers since, I think the last time was 2016 that I taught teenagers. because in 2017 it was a primary school.
Yeah.
So
Well, the theory commentary is clearly more applying to me than to you. You've done it as a godmother
Listen,
and as a teacher.
I don't think I've done it enough. That one of the things that I really want to change is spending more time with him, but we're separated because I'm in the north of England. He's in the south. My life is just ridiculously busy. I feel like I should call more and talk to him more, and I don't feel like I do enough. And so,
Godmom guilt. I've seen that you do a lot.
I do what I can, but I definitely could do more. But yeah, I think I just need to practice on my beautiful, wonderful godson, whom I adore very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. And also another massive thanks to Kelvin Frimpong and to the wonderful Dr. Alex Blower as well. You two have helped us make and shape this episode, and I'm so glad our listeners get to hear you. If you've enjoyed what you've heard from us and our contributors, please don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio, please leave us one of those 5-star reviews and a review with some comments on what it is you enjoyed about this episode and any others you've watched.